Eurozone finance ministers and the IMF have convened in Brussels to decide the fate of Greece's next bailout payment. Their two previous meetings failed to reach any agreement. Without the bailout cash, Greece is likely to default and be forced to leave the single currency bloc. Well, for more on this, let's now talk to Patrick Young. He's writer and executive director of the investment consultancy DV Advisors. So Greece has met all the demands, Patrick, yet no decision so far. 3 meetings in the last 2 weeks. Why the delay? Why the procrastination?
Oh, I think the procrastination is because there's not actually total clarity on just what the terms were Greece had to meet. And ultimately, lots of different, people in the whole agenda have been changing their mind on what they were going to accept from Greece all along. And throughout it, Greece has tried to meet lots of things, but at the same point in time, they've dragged their feet consistently. So ultimately, what we have is a hodgepodge ahead of a meeting, which is a hodgepodge of an entire euro fiasco going back 2 or 3 years.
Main issue is, of course, to prove the country's debt and interest payments are sustainable by 2020. Is it realistic that Athens could achieve that?
Oh, look, this is just the most ridiculous fiction of all time. I mean, right at the moment, Greece is on target, even on the official data, and frankly, I don't believe that, because I think it's far too conservative. Greece is on target by about 2014, 2015, to have debt of 190% to GDP. Basically, that is just outrageous. 60% is reasonable, 100% is a lot, 120% is probably unsustainable. And what is the target number we're trying to reach here? Well, actually, the Greek economy is going to be rescued by the IMF and the EU if it reaches 120% debt to GDP ratio by 2020 or 2022. So effectively, what we have here is a wonderful solution to the Greek debt crisis is that after 8 more years of hellish suffering, the Greek people will have an unsustainable debt mountain.
And can those people in Greece really sustain that for all that time? The social implications here, Patrick.
I really don't think they can. I mean, look, we can talk about the Greek economy and the Greek government and how lousy it's been, but can you honestly, reasonably expect your fellow human citizens to spend the next 8 years under swinging austerity? They've already had several years. There are all manner of terrible social problems within Greece. People can't buy medicines. They can't afford to get food. That is completely and utterly disgusting to see on the European continent in 2012 AD. Of course they can't survive until 2020. That's why ultimately the euro has a fundamental existential crisis and is unsustainable.
Are the Greek people being sacrificed for the survival of the EU? For example, if no decision is made today, wouldn't that be a disaster for the confidence in Brussels and the Eurozone as a whole? They've got to be seen to be united on this and make a decision.
Well, I think there's two things. I mean, first of all, are the Greek people being sacrificed? Yes. Very simple answer. Ultimately, is there confidence in the EU? Not really. I mean, what we've got is a kind of kinetic energy at the European Union level where they think that if they keep spinning and they keep talking and they keep telling us everything's okay, and ultimately people are wandering around the central square in Brussels, then everything's going to be absolutely fine. And do you know what it looks like? It looks like a Red Square army demonstration in about 1985. At that point in time, nobody believed that the Soviet communist empire could collapse, but if you looked at the numbers behind it, it was unsustainable. That's the mess the European Union's in, which is a tragedy because the European Union has done a great many good things for society, but ultimately the political elite, the elite of civil servants in the EU, are in la-la land compared to their normal citizens, and the poor Greeks are suffering badly as a result.
You talked earlier about different views on the agenda. Is there perhaps an indication that the IMF and some Eurozone finance ministers really are getting pretty fed up with Greece and would rather cut them loose?
I think there are a considerable number of people who would like to cut Greece loose at this juncture. A, because it's probably the most humane thing to do, but second of all, because ultimately the Greek government has simply failed to do anything that it has really been supposed to do in terms of privatization and so on. Many times it's enacted legislation, but failed to follow through. The taxation system in Greece is broken. All of these sorts of horrible things lead us to the fact that Greece is governed in a third world fashion at the moment, not in a first world fashion. And that ultimately is causing a huge amount of frustration with a great many EU finance ministers, some of whom because they've got lots of money, such as, say, Germany, Holland, and so on. Some of them because they've actually taken their medicine. The poor Irish, 20,000 people on the streets of Dublin at the weekend complaining about the austerity medicine they've had to take. And now they're hearing that the Greeks are going to get all manner of concessions in order to be allowed to get through the next hurdle and get their next bailout. That's not fair. It's very unreasonable on a lot of people, and that's leading a huge number of politicians to be increasingly fed up with the whole Greek situation.
Patrick, you tell it as it is. Thank you very much indeed. Patrick Young, always good to hear from you live there on RT. Thank you.